Hello, and welcome to Look Down There, the show where we talk about all the things we don't talk about. I'm your host, Michelle Lamore. Today, my guest helps women with period and autoimmune issues live full and abundant lives. She uses her experience as a clinical dietitian and AIP coach to help unblock mental and emotional issues to implement a healthy lifestyle. Please welcome my guest today, Shari Hussenbocus. Hello, Shari.
Hey, Michelle, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to finally talk to you in person.
Yes, I remember finding your account online and it hits two really great things for me. Autoimmune issues and period issues because we don't talk about either one of those things enough. And so you kind of combined all the taboo subjects into one account. So I was really excited to chat with you today.
Same here. And actually, you know what happened is I started having like period issues when I was like really young. And but actually it was one of the reasons why I decided not to go to medical school and go to dietetic school instead, even though I got a scholarship for medical school. And after I graduated, I realized that whenever I try to get information on autoimmune disease or how to deal with that, the information would often contradict what we learn about, how to deal with period issues or irregular menses or painful menses. So it's like, okay, you're telling me not to do A. If I have an autoimmune disease, which I have, and then if I have a period problem, you're telling me to do A. So which is which? What happens to the women who have both? So this is actually why I combine both. And I went and did my specializations first in female hormones and then in autoimmune disease. And I've been in private practice since like end of 2013. And over the years, one of the things that keeps, popping up is how we do have symptoms, and the symptoms that we have it tend to mess with our daily lives. And but it's not the symptom itself that is annoying; it's what it prevents us from doing. And the problem is that it tends to, really mess with how we think or our mindset because we tend to feel that we are less of a woman because we're not having our menses. I don't know. It was like that for me, or we're not able to do what other people are doing, especially when you have an autoimmune disease and we look like completely healthy, right? So this is like what actually pushed me to go into a different field and incorporate more of something called psychoneuroendocrinoimmunology into what I do. So basically, it's like how what goes on in here is going to interfere with our hormones, our immune system, and our nervous system. And like I've seen you mention that as well, like how your mindset will definitely impact not only what we're able to do, but our health as well.
Right. And in the case of autoimmune issues, I mean, autoimmunity is hard to understand in the medical field in general. A lot of the Western medicine doctors, they don't understand it, and they just try to mask the problem and shut it down instead of getting to the root of the problem. And
Mm-hmm.
as a woman coming in with these symptoms and saying, this is going on, this is going on, it's easy to write you off because you're right. We do look totally healthy, and and we're complaining. Women are complaining about these strange symptoms that no one can really put their finger on. And so a lot of times this stuff just goes untreated, or it gets buried or masked or band-aided. So it's really important, like you're doing functional medicine, and to me, but I think is key to helping to alleviate our symptoms.
Definitely, definitely. But one of the things that I see as a professional that is like really missing in the field is that, we keep telling or advising our clients to, okay, you should avoid bad food, you should try to do this particular lifestyle change. And yeah, all of these are really important. But if you look at, there's something that is called the iceberg model of health, and this is something that I actually came across when I was doing my graduate studies at MSU in health promotion. And it tells you that the tip of the iceberg is your lifestyle, your diet, your genetics. But then just below, so the first level of the iceberg, just below sea level, would be your social interactions. So, in other words, if you're like surrounded by happy people or toxic people, this is going to influence what you eat and how you live. And then just below the social interaction level, you've got the mindset level. And the mindset level, so how you think or your beliefs, your thoughts, uh, all of that is going to influence who you deal with, who are the people who are in your environment, and that's again going to influence what you eat. And the foundation of the iceberg would be spiritual health. So many people think about spirituality as simply praying, but that's not just that. It's also knowing that you have a purpose on earth, being able to enjoy the small things, treating others well, irrespective of skin color, gender, and things like that. But also treating the environment right, treating animals right, respecting their rights and things like that. Because when that bottom layer is not well nurtured, all of the other layers will be affected. So I kept saying, like, women struggling with implementing like AIP, and then like it's not working. They're still having symptoms because we just focus on the tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we don't operate in a bubble. And I think we try to just piecemeal our healing when really we have to do it holistically. And,
Mm.
I think autoimmune disease is actually a really great opportunity to dig deeper because the symptoms are really just a call to action to
Exactly.
go ahead deeper below the surface and really handle and heal those issues that you might be having mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and really kind of bring it all together. You mentioned AIP, and I have a lot of experience with AIP, but it stands for autoimmune protocols. So can you tell us more about that diet?
Okay, so first, I love that you mentioned that an autoimmune disease can be an opportunity. So again, it really depends. Like the outcome of our health issues will really depend on how we decide to view it. But yeah, so AIP, we have to differentiate between the AIP diet, so autoimmune paleo diet, and the autoimmune paleo protocol. So, like the diet mentions, is just about changing what you eat. But the protocol is much more holistic in the sense that you eliminate foods that could have a potential to trigger an inflammatory response, or that would, in a like very tiny nutshell, irritate your gut lining and could cause an immune reaction, which would trigger flare-up. So all of these foods, which might be healthy for someone else, but are not necessarily healthy for someone who has an autoimmune condition, will be removed and replaced. So the focus is a lot on replacing with nutrient dense foods or gut healing foods, and not just like eliminating and eliminating. But it also looks at how you manage your stress. And when we think of stress, we tend to think only of, stress at work or stress in relationships. But there are like, we coined 9 different types of stress. You have, not to go into too many details, but the stress that we put on ourselves, so internal pressure, or it could be the stress that your surroundings, it could be environmental, the people who live with you, the stress that they impose on you, or the stress of what you're eating if you're not tolerating these foods. So it looks a lot at how to manage your stress. It looks a lot at sleep quality, but also nurturing healthy relationships with your surroundings. So not just people, but nature and your environment. And it will also look into supplementing when it's needed, but not it does not over rely on supplements. And there's a lot about resilience, so meaning helping the person deal with her lifestyle, deal with her diagnosis, and really create a fulfilled life in spite of having that autoimmune disease, and not making the disease or the diagnostic define who she or he is as a person.
Yeah. For me, I found AIP first through going paleo. And going paleo was a slow process. Like, I didn't do everything cold turkey. I think it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
important to ease into this if this is,
Mm-hmm.
something that you're interested in, because it can all seem very overwhelming because our world is not set up for a lifestyle like this. It's not quick and easy. It's actually very mindful and it takes time. And so, yeah, there is a lifestyle change and there are some sacrifices that you have to make. And I turned to it because, well, I have alopecia, so I was super stressed out trying to get answers, and I've had alopecia since I was 6. And there's many factors as to what could cause autoimmunity, and so I was on the search, and I was in the middle of a flare up, and my doctor just looked at me and shrugged her shoulders and said it was hard. And I was like, well, that's not good enough. Like there has to be something. So then I started reading about inflammatory foods and I was like, well, that's my entire diet. that's,
Yeah.
I'm a Midwestern girl. I love my starch. I love my cheese. I love my bourbon. It was like that was my reputation. If people came to my house, they would bring a hunk of cheese over. um,
Okay.
so it was a big change, not only for me, but also for my friends, seeing me go
Mm-hmm.
through this and not really telling them why, because I was being quiet about it. And then I leapt into the AIP, which was a struggle. I mean, that was a struggle for me. That was like a sacrifice. That was just one. It was just too much for me. But I stayed with it for about 6 months. And what I realized actually in that time was like, oh, this doesn't have to be a punishment. This is like, let's clear the slate, let's clean your body, and then we'll bring foods back in so you can tell how your body is reacting to it. I think a lot of times when we eat food, we do have reactions, but we don't know what's happening because we're so desensitized to our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like AIP really brought in this hyper focus to like, okay, what does my body do when I eat a nut? you know, what does it do when I have some cheese? And you can kind of tune into those little differences.
That's nice because like I like that you mentioned that AIP is hard because it is hard. And my approach is, I would say, a bit different in the sense that, well, I was raised up on a traditional diet. It's very French, like lots of baguette and butter and cheese, and and then I went to university and I learned that butter is not good, margarine is good. So I shifted from like a healthy diet to a really unhealthy diet, because that's what dietetic school teaches you. And then I started getting all of these symptoms, and I came across paleo. I went paleo, and paleo was fine because it brought me back to my childhood diet in a way. But then, like, all the improvements stopped, and I was a bit like at a loss, because it was not enough. And it's not until like about 3 years later I came across AIP, but I didn't implement it like for me. It was for my dad, because he had renal psoriatic disease, meaning that the psoriasis had affected his kidneys. And the doctors were like, okay, you know what, we're going to give you medications. And my dad was like, okay, but this is going to have so much side effects. And the doctor said, yeah, it will affect your liver, but then we'll take care of the liver afterwards, which was not good enough. I mean, it was I just didn't sit well with me. So while we were driving back home, I just stopped and I told him, you know what, I can go and buy your medications for you. But how about you try AIP? And when he tried AIP, it's good to know that we had already done a lot of mindset work before, meaning that, we start by rewiring the brain just by implementing a few like very tiny habits to make it easy for the person to expect other changes and also understand how you're eating, why you're eating certain foods, of an emotional, like for me, bread, for example, brings back happy memories. Not anymore, but it brings back happy memories. So simply telling someone who has happy memories attached to a food to just stop eating that, it's just not going to happen. So you need to be able to like peel the layers of an onion and try and find the root thing. Okay, why is that food so important to you? Can we try to get that feeling you get, and we get it from somewhere else? Once the person is able to get that feeling from somewhere else, then the food no longer has the same, um, not the same value. I would say the same. I'm not getting the word. Like emprise. You see, when I speak English, like the French words will come, and when I speak French, like my brain speaks in English. So basically, the hold that the food has on you, when you're able to understand the subconscious beliefs that are associated with that food, it's easy then to give up that particular food. And like in my career, I've worked a lot with teenagers who came into my office and they told me, you know what, I'm not going to stop eating my KFCs, my weekly KFCs and McDonald's and my Oreos, my daily Oreos and my daily Burger Kings, and like really a lot of uh, fast food every single day. And I'm like, okay, fine, you can do that, keep eating that. We are just simply going to focus on why you're eating what you're eating and how you're eating. And then after a month, they tell me, you know what? I can't even finish like the whole package of Oreo in one sitting, or two single meals is too much for me. I'm just eating one. So they step away from these foods and start incorporating more nutritious foods happily. So it doesn't feel like the diet is a diet of I'm depriving myself because I have to watch what I eat, otherwise I'm going to get sick. I personally feel like it's no way to live. It robs you of your purpose because you're always wondering, am I going to react to that? Am I going to react to that? Without realizing that when you keep stressing about what you can react or not react to, you put yourself in an inflammatory state and you're more likely to react to foods you wouldn't otherwise have reacted to.
Yeah, exactly. I was definitely feeling that way. I was really obsessed and concerned, and like the stress of it was just too much. And then I had to calm down and be like, you know what? I'm not chasing hair anymore. I just I know what my body likes now. I know how to feel good. Like that's what's important to me. My hair will do whatever it does, and I need to just be happy. And one of the things I found while pursuing this different diet is you were talking about the feelings of memories, and that food is such a source of connection for us, and how we celebrate, how we celebrate with our friends. We celebrate with drinking, we
Mhm.
celebrate with having a big meal, going out to eat or whatever, and holidays with families. And remember, the hardest part of it was not feeling supported. And I think it's very important, that's great that people can come to you and get that support, but it can feel very isolating because it's just not how the world works. And then
Mhm.
I would get angry. I would get angry that, why is it so hard and so expensive to find real food. It's just food. It's real
Mhm.
food. It shouldn't be this difficult. And then I would just get very angry about the whole quote unquote food industry, and knowing that I can walk into most grocery stores and know that about 98% of the food that's in there is not food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, true. It is so true.
Yeah. So how does your period get affected with autoimmune diseases?
Well, that would really depend on what kind of autoimmune diseases that you have. But like in my practice, well, let's start with me first. Like by the time I changed my diet, I was having my menses like once a year. And to be very honest, although my parents they celebrated the first time that I got my periods, because I was an athlete, I was actually happy not to get my periods. Because I love training, so when you have your periods, you're a bit slower, and I was always trying to improve my racing times and things like that. But then at some point, you start realizing, okay, there's something wrong. And I don't know how to explain it, but when you don't get your menses, when you're supposed to be getting your menses, you just feel weird. There's something, and it makes sense in a biological way because of all the hormones that are not being produced and things like that. So that was the big issue for me, like not getting my periods, like for many many months, or when I would have them, it would be like in a really small amount and like lots of cramps, and especially I had lots of back pain that would make it like really hard for me to even get out of bed, and I was at 24 at the time. So that's very scary for someone who is 24 and is like wondering, okay, will I be able to walk today, things like that. But for many others, the issue would be having periods that are too frequent, so like less close, fewer than 27 days apart, or having a large amount of like bleeding a lot. Like I had just last week, there was this new client who was mentioning that the first 2 3 days of her period, she has to use like 8 pads, maxi pads, one on top of the other, because even the diva cups, it will like make even more of a mess. So by the time like the first pad is full, she has the time to go and change it and things like that. So it's not just about like how much you're bleeding or not bleeding, or how often you're not getting your periods or not getting your periods. It's all the fatigue, the deep in your bones fatigue that comes with it, the brain fog, you're not able to concentrate, or you forget simple things, and all the pain, like you feel like you're 1,000 years old, and you cannot do like very very simple things. And it does bring like depression symptoms, or anxiety, because of course you wonder what's going to happen to me down the road. And I would say the thing that I believe is the most painful for all of these women would be that when you look at them, they look healthy. So when they come and they tell you, I'm in pain, like I know what it feels to, feel every single bone in my body and have still going to work and like, delivering speeches and things like that. I'm not going to go and tell everyone, I'm in so much pain. But then at the same time, when you're a bit slower, people don't understand. So, okay, yeah, she's just lazy. If you're able to overcome that and stand up for yourself without having to expose your whole medical issue, then good for you. But I believe that I've lived in a few different countries, and I believe that it's something that's an issue in many parts of the world, where women are expected to be like small men in a way. So you have to do everything just like a man would do, without realizing that there would be a time during the month where, because we are women, we need more self-care. We need to nurture ourselves more. We need to slow down, and it's normal. But when that time happens and society tells us that no, you need to hustle 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 all the time, we can start thinking there's a problem with us, especially if like 2 weeks before you start getting PMS, and you're like a zombie for like half of a month, over and over again. And how do you go and explain it to someone who won't even take the time to understand it? So this is like how periods and autoimmune disease, I believe that, when you have an autoimmune disease plus period problems, like you get even more pain with it. It might not be the cramps, but it might be like headaches, migraines, or joint pain that would really affect the woman who has both issues.
Yeah, I was on birth control for a very long time, probably
Okay.
18 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And that, really pulls us off of our own timing and what we're, paying attention to our own cycle and what we might
Mm-hmm.
need during certain parts of the month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I got off the pill, I had no clue what was happening with my body. I was experiencing a different kind of PMS that, was like it basically came down to I had probably 3 good days a month where I felt like
Wow.
myself, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And it was in changing my diet that those things regulated and that I
Mm-hmm.
could start tuning into that timing and paying attention to when I'm having that anxiety and going, okay, why am I feeling this way? And then looking at the calendar and being like, okay,
Mm.
that's what's going on. But what is the optimal period in terms of duration, flow, PMS? Like what things should we be looking out for?
Okay, so actually PMS are simply, well, not simply, but they are a red flag that there's something off with your body. Off in the sense that it needs rest. And when I say rest, it's not just simply sleeping. It could be sleeping, but you could be needing to have creative rest, like to have fun. You could need digestive rest in the sense of like watch what you're eating or maybe nourish your body more. So what I tell what I've experienced myself is that like during like the 2 weeks, the first week before you ovulate and the week afterwards, you're supposed to feel like on top of the world, like like you can go for your dreams and like achieve everything you want. You
Wait,
should
which
feel
which part
that
of the
way.
cycle? The first and the last? Is that what you said?
So when you're menstruating, usually, so that would be the first part of your cycle. When you're menstruating, you're shedding an organ, so it makes sense that you would feel tired and maybe a little bit more emotional, but not emotional to a point where you're crying all the time or you're angry all the time. That's not what I'm talking about, emotional. But then, like you have when the uterus lining is like reforming, this is like your period of time where you might be a bit more creative. But then the week that's just before the time you ovulate and a few days afterwards, so I would say the like half of the month, you're supposed to feel on top of the world. So this is usually the time where where women will tell you that, okay, my breasts are hurting, or I have mood swings, or digestion is not that good, and things like that. And they think that, okay, it's normal. I'm going to get my periods. It's not normal. It actually means that your body is not healthy, and that you need to look into what it needs to reach optimal health. So in terms of length, it would be 27, 28 days would be the minimum duration of a cycle, and the maximum would be about 35. So when I say 35 days, it would be like day number one starts with your periods. And then in terms of duration, it would be like 3 days is fine. Some women have it 5 days, 7 days also is fine. More than that, you run the risk of becoming anemic. So I would say 5 to 7 days would be the norm. And you're supposed to ovulate like Science tells you that it's like on the day 14th, but again, it will depend on how long your cycle is. So 27 to 35 would be fine. And it's also important to understand that what is important in the menstrual cycle is not whether you bleed, but whether you ovulate, because you might bleed but not ovulate.
Oh,
And
interesting.
if
I
you
didn't know that that
ovulate,
was possible. Okay.
yeah, because this is actually like if the egg does not get fertilized, then you will bleed. But you can bleed, your body can shed the organ even if no egg was, so you didn't ovulate. So what's the most important thing when we consider a menstrual cycle is not. So what I do is that I won't just ask my patient, "Are you having your menses?" But okay, are you sure you're ovulating? So the next question is, how do you know? There are many ways. So you can look at vaginal discharge during different times of the month, but you can also look at body temperature. So when you're ovulating, there'll be like zero point 0.4 to 1.2 degree Celsius change. So that is
Higher or lower?
higher, yeah,
Okay.
higher, yeah. So your body temperature will increase a little bit, and it varies. Like why for some women it's as much as 1 degree, and for others it's 0.4. That has to do with your physiology. But yeah, your body temperature would increase. And I have many women who tell me, okay, you know what, I'm not interested in ovulating because I'm not planning to have kids anytime soon. And ovulation is not just for pregnancy. When you ovulate, your body is going to produce something called progesterone. So progesterone is a hormone. And to keep things simple, do you know, like a long time ago, people didn't have phones, they didn't have email, so they would need to, like, let's say I need to send a message to someone who's on the 10th floor and I'm on the first floor, and I don't want to take the stairs. So there would be someone called a messenger, all right, I would give my letter to the messenger and who would take it to the office on the 10th floor, and so on and so forth. So hormones are like messengers. So one organ would produce the hormone that would go and send a message to another hormone, to another organ, right? So progesterone is a messenger that when it is released, it helps a woman feel like, really feminine, sexy for herself, not necessarily for others. But, when you feel deep down, you feel very sexy and voluptuous and things like that. So that is the work of progesterone. So it increases your libido, but it improves your state of mental well-being. So this is why I mentioned that when you ovulate, you're supposed to feel like really, bubbly, and which makes sense because this is the time of the month where you're fertile, right? And again, it's not ovulation is not just about pregnancy, but if we look at an evolutionary point of view, if a woman is fertile and is like really grumpy and has very low libido, the human race would be practically extinct.
Yeah.
Again, that's from an evolutionary point of view. But like I believe that when God created like human beings, we tend to see the period as this big burden, but it should not be the case because this time of the month is actually something that is going to make us feel better because of progesterone. And progesterone, it decreases your risk of having breast cancer or cervical cancer or uterine cancer. And it helps you have quality sleep. So it is somehow linked to the production of melatonin, which is another hormone that helps you fall asleep, stay asleep, and have quality sleep, right? And it helps to protect your muscles. It helps to protect your thyroid. It helps to protect your cardiac muscles, so your heart. So progesterone is extremely important. And we are doing a disservice to women when we tell them that, okay, you don't, because that happened to me. My doctor told me, okay, you want to get your periods, but you're not interested in having kids now, so just take the pill. But it does not fix the problem, because when you look at the molecular composition of the pill, the substances that are in the pill look more like testosterone. So they are calling it like the female castration. And whoever wants to take the pill, I'm fine with it. But as long as you know why, whether you have other choices or options besides a pill. Because when that is given to a very young woman who has just started, so a teenage girl who has just started menstruating, and we're giving it to her because she has acne, or we're giving it to her because her menses are irregular, and they're supposed to be irregular when you just start menstruating, right? What we are doing is we are preventing the brain from talking to the ovaries. So there is something called the brain ovarian axis. The
Oh.
brain talks to the ovaries. It tells the ovaries, okay, now it's that time of the month, start producing that and that. And the ovaries will send another signal. And the adrenal glands also work together, and they say, okay, the coast looks clear, meaning that I'm not producing a lot of cortisol, so we can let her ovulate, for example. And the issue is that, when we start having our menses, like the first few years when we're having our menses, it's kind of like when you open a tap on, and like water, you have a drizzle of water flowing. And after a few years, you close it, you will see the path of water. But if midway, like 3 years after you open the tap, 3 years after the girl started getting her menses, you open it on like the maximum amount, you turn the water pressure on, and then you close it after a few months, the first path will have disappeared. And this is why so many, and I've seen it a lot, many women who by the time they reach 25, they come and they tell me, or 27 or 30 or whatever, they tell me, okay, I want to have kids now. And I've been off the pill, but I cannot get pregnant. I cannot ovulate. And then when we go back and we look at it, they've been taking the pill for so long that it has erased the small river that the brain was creating to be able to talk to the ovaries. So unfortunately, many of these women, they can never get the periods back again, ever again. So this is something that women need to know. They have the choice, they have the right to take the pill if they want to. This is not what I'm debating here. What I'm about is we need to empower women so that, okay, you want to do A, at least you know all of your options, and then we respect the decision that you make. And the other issue with the pill is that it really damages the gut. There have been like numerous studies showing that it
Yeah.
damages the gut. It affects the thyroid, and it has been linked more and more to autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, I know. That was shocking to me. And when I realized that I was on it for so long, I was like, oh my God. I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, again, this is not to make anyone who's on the pill worry. It's just to put the information out there so that you can discuss it with your doctor. And if your doctor is willing to discuss it with you, then that's fine. Otherwise, if the doctor was like mine, I decided to simply stop seeing that doctor because I was interested in knowing why I was not getting my periods, and not to just get a band-aid slapped on it, because it's not about my menstrual cycle, it's not about me getting kids or not getting kids. It's a vital health marker in a way.
Right. But I mean, that's key is being able to talk about it and talk about it with your doctor. Even going to someone who is trained to talk about these things, it's
Mm-hmm.
still very embarrassing and shameful for women to talk about this with their doctor or friends or really so they could just be suffering in silence or just thinking like we I think that we do know our bodies very well, and I think that we
Mm-hmm.
do have an intuition, but we will defer to someone in a white coat because we think, well, they know better, where internally there's something going, no, 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 this is not right. So,
Mhm.
what can we do to overcome those feelings of shame and also tuning into our own intuition when it comes to these matters?
Okay, so what I usually suggest would be to go and see your beliefs about the periods. Where do they come from? Where did you get them from? Did you get them from maybe your society? Or did you get them from like your parents or your grandparents? And you have to be willing to write these things down. Like, for example, okay, periods are dirty, or periods are shouldn't be discussed in public. These are not things that I believe. It's just things that people have told me, or like. This was never my case growing up, but I know that some Muslim families, when the woman is menstruating, we don't have to fast. And it might look like, why don't we have to fast? It's really hard to fast when you're having your menses. So this is actually a blessing, and we see it as God's mercy on the woman, because she's menstruating. She needs to rest. She needs to nourish her body. But in many cultures, the woman would have to wake up and not tell the others that she's menstruating. So go back and see where that belief comes from, and it's about setting boundaries in a way. So okay, you are allowed to believe that periods are dirty, periods should not be spoken about, but I have the right to believe that this is part of my natural physiology. So your belief, take it back, I don't need it anymore. Of course, you don't go and tell the person that, but you could write it on paper, like things that, okay, you don't agree with, because it just goes against the periods or something that should be shamed, or you should not want to talk about. Write it on paper, and then maybe you just burn it, and you tell yourself, okay, this is not something that I choose to believe in, and then start talking about it without feeling that you without thinking that you're doing something wrong. Like, for example, when I ask about the menstrual cycles, when I talk about that to my with my clients, um, at the beginning you can see that they don't want to answer the questions, and then I would just go and tell them, okay, this is so why it's so important for us to menstruate, and okay, talk about it. And the more that I see that someone is embarrassed to talk about it, I will give her homework. Okay, today what you're going to do is you go and you talk to your sister or to your brother. You got your menses and it was like that. Okay, so just make it something that is you make it familiar, because the brain learns by repetition. So meaning that, okay, today that talking about your periods is not familiar, tomorrow you do it again, your brain will be, okay, again that, and after a week, after 2 weeks, okay, I always hear you talk about your period, so it must be something that is normal. Okay, we accept it as normal now. It's just about starting. Don't try and change the world, try and change you first. How
Yeah.
you believe, what you think about your periods.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being a kid uh, going to the bathroom and hiding my tampon, and like nothing's going on here. Um, but no more. I love having my period. I'm a super fan. I feel like I learn a lot about myself every time,
Mm,
and something that I've started doing recently is not using tampons and using like the special underwear,
okay,
like
yeah,
free
that's great.
bleeding, right? So
Mm, yeah, yeah.
so that's been a new thing that for me the past few months, where I'm like, oh, this is what's going on. Because before, when I use a tampon, it just plug it up and you walk away, walk around. You have no idea what's happening until you take it
Okay.
out, and you're like, all right, whatever. But I'm like, oh, this is a whole new experience, and now I'm paying attention to the amount, the color, and I find it all very interesting.
It
But
is,
what do
it
you
is.
like? What do you think about as in terms of products? Like, what do you recommend using, or what are your favorites?
Okay. So basically, what you like the freestyle kind of thing, this is really good, especially if you can get something that is not bleached or does not have, dyes or artificial dyes. Because the problem with pads and tampons would be the bleach that is used and the chemicals that are used in that. I learned about the chemicals when I was really young because I would, like start having all kinds of reactions because of the pads. But the Diva Cup is nice as well if you can get something that is medical grade silicone, for example, and not like the cheap knockoffs. Or you have some that are really cute and everything, but yeah, don't go and put something that has glitter.
Oh,
You don't
jeez. A little glamour pussy. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But you run the risk of, the vagina is something that is really delicate. Yes, it is self-cleansing, but don't go and add chemicals that are not needed there. Which brings me to something else. I've always been like really irritated to see, like, you have like full grocery aisles. I mean, in the supermarkets, a lot of female hygiene stuff. Why is it that men don't need it? Okay, so that's a whole different topic, but
Yeah.
you don't need all of these, perfumes or like to wash it because these chemicals, what they're doing, they're going to strip away the good bugs or the good bacteria that reside in the vagina. And when you take away the good, you're allowing the bad to come in and like really multiply. And that is when these bad microbes, they are the ones that give off a bad smell. It's not the vagina. It's the microbes who are producing substances that smell. It's not the vagina again. And it also increases the risk that you'll get UTIs or that you'll get, yeast overgrowth, candidiasis, and you'll start like itching and things like that. So water is fine. You don't need to go and use all like 10,000 different products for that.
Yes. Yes. Well, Sherry, this has been so great to talk to you. I'm so happy that we were finally able to meet and come together and talk about all these really great and important things that we don't talk about. So, where can people find you if they need some help or are they having some issues?
Okay, so right now I've put my website on like on hold. So if people want to reach me, will be via my IG account, Instagram account. So it's autoimmune period productivity, and like right now I'm more into like educating. But I have a brand new, very short program that I've been implementing in my private practice since 2014, where I've created like a 15-page questionnaire that really digs deep into like the emotional state, digestion, intestinal health, your period, autoimmune health, and what you're eating, not eating, how you sleep. It's really really goes in depth, and then based on that I can give a person one step to implement. So that one step might will be the step that based on her symptoms, based on what she's doing, that I believe will help her take a faster step towards her goals and objectives. And then there is this program for women who might be struggling on paleo or might be struggling on the standard American diet and who know they need to start AIP, but it looks like it's so complicated. So there is this program that facilitates the transition. And it's not just about facilitating, it's about making you look forward to it. So I remember when I completed AIP with my very first client, he was like 17, yeah, 17, and he told me, you know what, you made it sound so complicated. It was weird. I was still learning, but it was not that complicated. I actually really loved the whole process. It's because his mind was working differently because when you help the person see things differently, it becomes very easy to implement change without feeling like you're having to sacrifice yourself. And then I have other programs where I help people who they've already mastered the nutrition parts, but they need help with the mindset. So they might have subconscious blocks, and they might know which one. So there's a short program for that, or they might have no idea. And I am actually completing training in clinical hypnotherapy that will look much more into subconscious reprogramming. So very short therapy, like maybe in 90 minutes, being able to create something that the person will go and listen to, like an audio using the words she uses herself to, in a very simple way, to explain it, remove old thoughts and replace them with new ones that will serve you, that will help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Yeah.
That's great. That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Shari.
Thank you for your time. It was lovely meeting you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, everyone, it's time to spread your legs and spread the love. Like us, follow, and subscribe. Make sure you follow Autoimmune Productivity on Instagram, and you can follow us at I Look Down There or me at Michelle Amore. And remember that confidence comes from the bottom up. So grab a mirror and look down there.